8. October 879. They had travelled back to Doya. The slow, steady stream of carts which had left 4 months before, taking the dead king to his resting place at Hardmarka, the light-hearted, happy Muya to her new life married to the king of Tara, and the parley of the clans, of the children of the Uineel, for trade, for fun, for justice, for renewal. It was autumn. Harvests had been gathered, food plentiful. Mornings began mild, with mists rising from the fields. All Saints' Day, where every cent in Irene would be remembered in a service at the monastery, as it had been a year ago, was nearly upon them, and, the day before, dinner would be eaten in silence, apples would be shared and little trinkets laid about the land to mark Samhain, the liminal line again between Christianity and heathenism. There was renewal. Osrith had thought, riding on the covered cart, Malcolm asleep next to her, Neil Glundube begging for another story, of the princess in the castle by the sea. She would never tell that one again, Osrith told herself, as she led the 3 girls and 2 young boys over the monastery. The boy remembered it too well. Instead, she stuck to the stories of Kings Solomon and David, of goodness and hope, of might and wisdom. On their return, the mood of the procession was solemn. They did not stop at Kells, nor Madka. Instead, covered as much ground as possible. Flann was concerned about this, the northern Uineel territory, and that of the Egil. Sinil Mac and Chobar, king of the Ulaid, would not rest from the challenge to take the land he thought rightfully his. His departure from Tara was merely a retreat, not a submission. The Ulaid would never accept a Uineel king as their high king, and it was suspected that he would mount an attack, and soon. No, Osrith did not know the suspicions of the king. Tadg told her, one night as they were resting in the stables of monastery just outside Stradbane, that this was his fear, which is why they were running, fast, for the fortress at Doya, to establish Flann's kingship in the north. Osrith found it was difficult without Finolai. Strange, they could all feel it. When they were riding, no one was there to respond to Tadg's suppositions that the spirits had made the day fine for them, or the water nymphs the rain. Neither she nor Tadg had Finolai's patience, practicing swordsmanship with Fergus, ferocious, stolid, but with few tactics, and both spat frustrated words at him. Osrith missed him dreadfully. He had grown to be her friend, he had helped her with her hair, her clothes, her battle skills. Sat with her when she wearied ahead of the other warriors. He never demanded anything of her, not her time or her body, and Finolai's goodness left behind a gnawing hole in Osrith's soul, balmed only with the knowledge that she had done what she could for him. He had silver. He would find a way to stay alive, well away, Osrith hoped, from the Gaelish royal family who had plotted to enslave him like they had a fierce, inconvenient young queen that morning on the beach near Tara. It had struck particularly hard on the morning they had left Stradbane, just south of the River Foyle, before they headed downriver to Doya. Osrith had asked Tadg to battle her, and he murmured that he was a poor replacement, meaning to Finolai, his verbal sparring partner. Did they know where he was? That Domhnall was involved? Should she tell them she helped him escape? But, in truth, both warriors had turned in on themselves. As Osrith watched Tadg's white blonde hair spilled from under his helmet, and Fergus's fire-kissed head absorbing the afternoon sun's deep gold, she felt the weight of guilt on her stomach. She was with them, yet Finolai was not. They had followed the Foyle along the valley as fast as the horses could take the retinue, laden with canvases, cooking pots, wood poles and chests. Osrith had looked on, towards Loch Foyle. It was nearly 2 moons. The heathen beaver said to meet her then. But, when Osrith had slipped away to meet the heathens, she hadn't been there. For a week Osrith walked the 5 miles to the sandy beach in the mornings, and each time there was no sign. Not that she had the silver to pay any longer. But she had a sword, of sorts, and her ability to fight. So she had gone back to the palace, increasingly annoyed at their arrangement being broken, avoiding Domhnall Mac Finlaith, who had taken it upon himself to watch her walk, nothing more, just watch her pass the monastery and walk up towards the stables to sit with Tadg and Fergus, his pale grey eyes resting on her until Osrith turned her head and looked at him, the want to be king of Doya and all of the northern Uineel territory. And it struck her, The second night, how frustrated he must be to lose his birthright, to be passed over at Team Reach, at the vote of hiking and marriage to Malmuia, to Flan Sinner. The young man, who had spent a good deal of his time up to his neck in drink and up to his groin in serving girls, his sister gone, must be very bitter indeed. Osrith's first duty when they arrived back at the northern Uineal's palace at Doia was to aid with the feast. Stirred by months of inactivity, like patting a chair heavily laden with dust, the maids, servants, kitchen boys, stable hands and housekeepers sprang into action. Osrith had been taken to the kitchens on the night they had arrived back and had worked into the night as the cook, harried with the journey, barked orders at her with words she could not understand. The other servant girls did, however, and they scuttled about, carrying barrels, bringing chickens, plucking and digesting them, bringing ale. As usual, they ignored Osrith, instead, pointing to her hair as she passed. It was growing back, thick and stubbly, and now, 3 days after arriving back, she was standing outside Malmuir's chambers, answering her summons. Dressed in a dark woolen dress, knitted shawl around her shoulders, King Flan's wife beckoned her in. It was colder now, much darker than the last time she had been there, to receive instruction about educating Theg children and had seen the gospel book, to be embellished by the squid ink from the sea beasts she was to find. Queen Muir was not happy with Osrith and said so. She began with the dress she had been given, which lay in shreds in the hedgerow about Dara. Then, to her battle with Domhnall's man, whom she had killed, finishing with her refusal to marry. Osrith listened, keenly and intently, as the queen looked her over, insisting she see her wounds, then insisting on Ronaid, her maid, bathed them. They were not as bad as they could have been, Ronaid pointed out, new skin forming on her shoulder and neck, and all at once, Osrith was reminded of her good friend Finolai, who knew how to treat her injuries and had quietly and gently soothed her mind, and was overcome with a shiver of guilt. He had had to run. For the Uineals, a girl, Domhnall's sister, once queen to Flan, had been enslaved. Did Muir know this? She was to continue teaching the children, Muir relayed. Osrith's skill was valued, for both the princesses and the young princes, and she should spend time in the monastery learning more. And to serve. Her bed was to be at the back of the kitchen so she could more easily work for Moray, the ill-tempered cook. Before she left, Ronaid shaped her hair, bringing a thin blade that reflected the sun's mellow light onto its steel to Osrith's head. Muir watched, but said nothing. Was she waiting for Osrith to say something about her treatment that night by Domhnall and Donshada? Muir was about to dismiss her, when the look on Osrith's face instead caused the queen to call her to her. "What troubles you?" she asked, kindness in her voice. "My body," Osrith blurted out. She had not meant to say anything, but her shape had been concerning her. It has changed, it is different to once it was. The will had gone out of her fight, too, but this was nothing a queen could help her with. Muir looked earnestly at her, as Osrith felt her face redden with her confession, and the queen laughed. "You are becoming a woman, Osrith," she tinkled. "You are 16 now?" 14, Osrith corrected, annoyed that these changes were because she was growing into femininity. Would it stop her from fighting? Domhnall had told her to eschew sex, lest she became with child, yet if her body was going to change anyway, and she could not continue to be a warrior, was there any point? "You could marry," Muir suggested, still smiling at Osrith. "We have warriors to whom you could be wed, and be safe. Domhnall has spoken to me that Tadgor Feargus may be suitable, or one of our own. You speak Gaelish well." "Marry?" Osrith scoffed, touching across to her shoulder. "I will never marry," she declared, feeling the void which was Finolai in her heart. He was the closest she would ever come to marriage, and his predilection for men would prevent anything, perfect to prevent children. Where was he? Osrith sent up a silent prayer that he was well, and not recaptured. And then, as she stood before the queen, who had taken Osrith's declaration solemnly, she resolved to never give in to passion again, to remember she was seeking her brother, Utad, and yes, she would. She should fight the changes in her body and continue to be a warrior despite tiredness, lethargy, effort of will to fight. Despite Muia's reassurances, Osrith still knew there was something not right with her body. She put her hand to her hair. "It will grow, and you will be beautiful again," said Muia, misunderstanding Osrith's decision to deny herself marriage. She nodded dumbly to the queen, who dismissed her. Yes, it would grow, and with it, so must she. She must leave this land. But, did it need to? Men, Saxon men sheared their hair short, as did criminals within Gaelish society. She had lost her hair for her mistake. As long as it was short she would not forget it. Instead, her shorn head would help her when she bidded to travel to Wessex, to Father Bicker, to Winchester, and to her brother.